Yeah, I'll have to do that.
Okay, good thinking. Well, make host. I guess you're the host.
Oh, one of the hosts,
No, I
something
think
like
you're the
that.
only one, so you must bear a huge responsibility now, Caroline.
Oh dear. Okay, well, anyway, welcome everybody. Happy Sunday afternoon for those on the West Coast. Happy later afternoon and early evening for those of you on the East or in the zip codes and time zones in between. I want to welcome you to this, our 19th reading, 19th event in our series of West East Poets of the Pandemic and Beyond. Are we beyond the pandemic? I'm not quite sure.
I think we have to shorten our name. I think we can just say West East Poets or Beyond or something, or just
Poets of the Beyond. I like that. Poets of the Beyond. Okay.
We'll talk.
Okay. We'll figure all that out later. A work in progress. In any case, it is really, it's our 19th event because this series began in June of 2020. And at first it was it was like once a month for a New York Minute, I think, or about 2 months. Then it went to every other month, and it has stayed at every other month. In other words, 6 events a year, every other on about the third Sunday of each of every other month. And so here we are at number 19. And we've had a wide range of poets appear for us and read. People of, extensive reputations and others who are just coming into their own more recently or just starting out. So, and recently we have added the open mic feature. We have focused on poets from all over, from all sensibilities and backgrounds, and actually from more than one continent, I believe. We've had poets from off the coast of the South American continent. And I'm not sure we have ventured into Europe yet, but we may be doing that. And so this afternoon, we have 4 poets who will be joining us. And our method of organization generally is that each of the 4 curators, Susana H. Case, Lynn McGee, Sandy Yannone, and myself, we each invite one poet to be a reader for the next event. And then, we all share our work together. And it has resulted in a wonderful mix of readers, poets who may have never heard of each other before or who may know each other quite well. For example, this time I have known Dvzinia and Lana for quite a long time. Actually, Dvzinia, I've known you the longest, and Lana, I've known you second longest. And Meredith and LJ, your work are new to me. So I'm just very glad to have you all here and welcome you to be here. And I look forward to hearing you read and also to hearing the open mic readers at the end. Well, we're going to start with Dvzinia Orlowsky, who is the poet whom I am introducing. And let me do something. I'm going to do a little magic here, which is to put her book onto the screen. Let's see if I can find it. It went away now. I have to go to, here we go. Somehow, well, it has gone away. I have to select a window, and the window that I want to share, there it is. Oh, okay, that's perfect.
That's not it.
Isn't that it? Oh, sorry. I just messed up. Let me stop the share. I was on the proper share and then it went away.
So
okay,
I would share it for you, but
there we go. I got it. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Yay.
Okay, which means I cannot look at something else at the same time. All right, I just messed it up again. Okay. Okay, forget it. Let me go back to the stop. I'm sorry about this. Here we go. Okay. I had typed something out, but I can't have it open on the screen and look at it and also share the screen. That's something I've just learned. So I'll go from my handwritten notes. In any case, about Dvzinia Orlowsky, fellow Ukrainian heritage poet Ilya Kaminsky has said that she inhabits a world that where the poet blesses all that has a pinch of salt. And the prose of reality transforms into the village of memory and revelation, family connections, all nuanced by a mother tongue, Ukrainian, and which is newly placed, not displaced, but newly placed in the new world of America. It has been unusual for Ukrainian descended Americans of the post-World War II generation to remain steeped in their heritage and language and culture. Of course, that's changed since the invasion of Crimea, the takeover of Crimea, and parts of eastern Ukraine. And then, of course, Putin's war on Ukraine beginning in February of last year. But Dvzinia, who was from this country but from a family of Ukrainian descent, has looked from the New World back to her family's origins through the lens of both languages and culture. She writes in the poem Swallow, which is the first section of Bad Harvest, the title sequence of the book, whose cover image you see on the screen. Does my name take your tongue's otherwise unclaimed space? That is what she asks. This could be addressed to any of us readers, or it could be addressed even to herself, as it echoes or refers to, sort of indirectly alludes to some of the times of deprivation and struggle that people of Ukraine have been experiencing over the generations. But she also has a wonderful sense of American humor in many of the poems. I particularly like the prose poems in the first section of this book, which there's a wonderful one, and it is, I'll spell out the name. It is F-A-C-K-U, fuck you, which is a funny sort of narrative prose poem about her father's first encounter with this uniquely Anglo-Saxon term of not exactly endearment. So that is an enjoyable poem based in the American experience. Well, I first met Dvzinia decades ago, actually, in the Boston area in the early 1990s, when I was living there and working there, and she was based, as she has been for most of her adult life, in Massachusetts. And it was probably at a reading for Anyi or at Boston University. And I remember we had a wonderful walk and talk after that event. And we saw each other at a number of literary events after that. But then I moved away for, several decades of peripetations in the rest of the country. And what brought us back together more recently, last year and the year before, was the fact that Lost Horse Press, which has published my books of poetry since 2006, began publishing the Ukrainian poetry series, the series of Ukrainian contemporary poetry. And one of the books in that series is Eccentric Days of Hope and Sorrow, which is a translation of the work of Natalka Bilots, let's see if I can say this, Bilotserkivets, translated by Ali Kinsella and Dvzinia Orlowsky. And so this is a really fine book with a wonderfully, brilliantly insightful introduction. And the book is bilingual, including the introduction. So it's both the Ukrainian and the English. And so this work brought us together. And so I want to present to you Dvzinia Orlowsky.
Thank you, Carolyne. That was a wonderful introduction. And thank you everyone for having me here. It's an honor and a thrill to read with you. I'm going to begin with a poem that actually was written during the pandemic, and it is called And Weep, and it is after Anne Waldman's poem And Sleep, the Lazy Owl of Night. And weep the blossoming drifts of blight, and weep the toxic tips of tongues, and weep the infected and the arrested, and weep the songs of sirens under distancing clouds, and weep the reedy fringes of breath, and weep the cold stone and attendants' gossamer scrubs, and weep the burning eye held open, and weep the heart that bursts in the throat. So that's honoring being a poet of the pandemic. And briefly, one of the things, as Carolyne mentioned, that during quarantine, I was very fortunate to meet with Ali and to be invited to translate Natalka Bielot-Serkiewicz poetry. Just briefly, Natalka Bielot-Serkiewicz is a Kiev-based poet her work became a literary hallmark in the 80s and 90s, and she still continues to inspire young writers in Ukraine. I'm going to read one poem of hers from the collection, and oddly enough, it is called Swallows, and Carolyne, you maybe foresaw that by reading my little micro poem, Swallows. But first in Ukrainian. Ластівки. Остання спроба вилетіти деш із чого курника цієї стайні. Цієї спальні, де вищать нагальні когані запахи травинного гнізда. Туди до безчених небес, і до мов підніжжя дроти електричні, і де веселкі змаги феєричні, спастичні втіхи бідного життя. Як рукавички чорні і з наших перст, мов чорні і білим клавіші рояльні, як феєверки вночі фестивальні, вони летять із рідного гнізда. Вони вже там, невидимі, як без кінчинним звук кінечної безодні, такі відважні і такі голодні, самотні злети нашого життя. In English. Swallows. A last attempt to fly off somewhere from this coop, from this stable, from this bedroom where the urgent sweet smells of an animal's nest hang there to there. To caressed heavens untouched, where electrical wires are like a pedestal and the fiery strokes of a rainbow, the unsettled comforts of a poor life. Like black mittens from our fingers, like the black and white keys of a piano, like festival fireworks at night, they fly from their native nest. They're already there, invisible, like the endless sound of the final abyss, so fearless and so cold, the solitary flights of our lives. So that's Natalka's. I'm going to read few from Bad Harvest, which was technically my most recent book. It came out in late 2018, and as Carolyne mentioned, Bad Harvest takes its title from the Stalin man-made famine of 1932-33 that killed upwards of millions of Ukrainians and other Soviet peoples. So it was obviously a very tragic time. And the book sort of spins from that idea of a bad harvest into more cultural, familiar, personal bad harvest, including a bad marriage, including you name it, with some humor as well. But I would like to begin with a prose poem. I'll just add that a lot of these subjects, even though I thought about them for a really long time, and the book was published in 2018, a lot of these subjects just really kind of almost came to a head last year. So it's just history keeps repeating itself. And this one is called Playing Possum, and it's about avoiding the draft. And as we recall, Putin was attempting to draft a lot of Russians to go into Ukraine. Playing possum. My father carefully rolls his pant leg up, places his leg between two wide boards. He tells my mother to jump hard on it. Crippled, he won't be drafted. They agree. Earlier, he had considered hiding under the living room's wooden floorboards, but that would make him feel less of a man and more like a possum, paralyzed and blind. And weren't they known for their short lives? Hadn't his friend Ihor just the day before avoided enlistment by drinking a vial of his wife's blood, spewing it past his cup of urine? Could he too do it? Drive a truck, heave honey, blow grits, trade his rugged for Ralph, blow on his thumb until he passed out? No, he was no greenhead looking for blood meal. He had a wife and they were in this together. She springs from their horsehair-filled couch, eyes closed tight, fingers plugging her ears. She lands with a thump. The leg doesn't break. He rolls away from her screaming, holds his hand up as if to strike the air. Hysterical, she sobs through his curses. Forgiving her slight body, he slowly closes his hand and lowers it over his heart. He did avoid the draft, though, by the way, so I feel. And his good friend actually really did drink his wife's blood. He was an intern, and he took a vomit-inducing pill, and just as he was being examined, he threw up human blood and went off to safety. Okay, this one also, Pussy Riot, has been in the news again, I think with TED Talks, and this is a tribute to them, but it predates my knowing who Pussy Riot was. So this poem is really a response to the first time I heard that term before I knew them. So this is called Pussy Riot, Want, Don't Want. I thought you were a catchphrase for not tonight. Oh yes, tonight, but not 2 nights in a row of late middle age. How else to say it? The thatched roofs are on fire and the villagers have fled, except this woman whom you left behind, her skirt rising in flames, wild heat, a wreckage of KY and oil of Olay. Oh, graying, fraying, housebound hive, you're not my problem, though I will admit your spreading reflection in the handheld mirror looks this year, don't make me say it, wiser, if not for love or song. Can a finger dip into honey in late January? Can red wine stream like blood down my legs? That afternoon, huddled against the cutting winter wind in front of the Boston State House, we protested. Putin must go. Yanukovych is a cesspool. While you, prison punk prayer, turn the world's attention to holy hooliganism. I thought you were a catchphrase for the want, don't want of middle age. Oh, pussy, what a riot. I had you all wrong. And this one is called Invisible Departures for Internally Displaced Persons, Crimea, 2015. How long before choosing to kiss an angel's hand, to reach for heaven's fruit-bearing boughs, the bee not disturbed, too drunk? How swollen seeds of heavy-headed sunflowers that bow along the glass road leading from home. How silent the instrument that comes down like a hammer on someone leaving someplace left. I'm trying to check my time here. Carol, can I do 3 more? 2? Okay, 3. All right. This is from my new book that actually is coming out with Carnegie Mellon next year. So I'm very happy about that. The book is called Those Absences Now Closest. And there's a sequence of poems that are inspired by the great Ukrainian filmmaker and literary stylist Alexander Dovzhenko, late 19th, early 20th century. And he very much celebrated Ukraine's rural land, the Desna River Valley area, as well as Ukrainian mythology and folklore. And I wanted to take that tone, but put a spin on it as we were heading toward war. And so I call it the disenchanted Desna in the time of Putin. And this poem actually has Putin in mind. It's called Desolate. He had no soul, only steam, no eyes, only 2 frying pans, no mouth, only a daub of red, no throat, only a chimney that choked him, no God, only a candle placed upside down. He had no voice, only a whip handle, no skin, only a sheepskin turned inside out, no feet, only puddles in which dirt swirled, no conscience, only pigeons spying from above. He had no will, only a cracked watermelon, seeds instead of memories, no woods, only withered grass, no roar, only labored horses and buckling calves, no bread, only one bowed fruitless tree. He had no angels, only the din of buzzing bees. He had no road to cross, no country, only a stinging nettle, no sins, only a thunder of artillery, no soldiers, only tongues over fires, no children, only an insurrection of flowers, no legs, though at times they ran like rivers of blood. I think I'm just going to read one more. It's in 3 sections, and it's called, it was inspired by a painting by the Romanian artist Lana Maria Cajal for a collaborative project that's titled Shattered Symbolic Gesture in Solidarity with Ukraine. So in 3 sections. Breaking news. What breaks one person revives another. What breaks into silence breaks through to eternity. But what if heaven is bombed and clouds no longer diaphanous, split like dried earth, crumble into dust, mortal as family? 2. What war? The soil is well drained for peonies whose only passion is to be unforgettable red. The hummingbird moth wishes for clover, the skin on your ankle for a blade of grass to sweep against it. What war? The sky has plenty of room. Petitions buzz like bees or lift into kites. If you run fast enough, pull hard against the winds. 7 months in, no one reports the bombings anymore. What war? Silence. Imagine that. 3. Imagine 3 birds at night calling out to their mates. I made it. I'm still here. In the meantime, a woman lies trapped under the rubble of a 9-story building. Everyone's praying she's still alive. Prayer is hope. But what is hope other than guesswork? And guesswork is the surefire way not to get to heaven. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dvzinia. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. And thank you for reading in the original also.
Oh, my pleasure.
You are perfectly fluent, I think. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I too want to especially thank you for the poem in Ukrainian. It's the language of my paternal grandmother, who was from Kiev. We called it Kiev when I was a child, which I can only follow through the sound, unfortunately. But it was lovely to hear it. The next poet is Meredith Trede. I've long admired her various career paths. She's been a poet, a publisher, an educator, a librarian, and a business person. And I don't know how she's found time to do all of that. We met as volunteers on the Slappering Hall Press Advisory Committee, a press which we both still have connections to. And I consider her a real friend in real space, not only virtual space. In fact, we live, I'd say, probably about 20 blocks from one another in New York City. The armature of Meredith Trede's Bringing Back the House, her new and third full-length collection from Broadstone Books, is a summer retreat 2 blocks from the Beach Boardwalk in Wildwood, New Jersey, which she's reading from today. But her new book is about more than the house, which you see on the cover that Carolyne is sharing. It's a story of family histories and the secrets formed, in part created from material found in archival letters. There's the aunt who drinks too much, who appears throughout the collection, and the beloved uncle who had a second secret family, as well as other voices. Ultimately, what this collection explores is familial love, which you will see as you hear her poems. So here is Meredith Trede. Meredith, you're on mute.
I hope you enjoyed that because I'm finished now. Okay, I'll try again. Yeah, my father's older sister, Lou, her husband bought this house in 1941. It was built in 1912. I spent part of every summer of my life down here. And so I'm just going to start with a childhood memory and then go through some of the poems in the book to give you a sense of what the place in this family meant to me. So 2 blocks from the beach, a weathered gray lattice woven fence wraps around the backyard of sandy soil and bristly grass. My bathing suit chafes ocean sand as my bottom rubs back and forth against the rough plank of the swing. Every arc up, I tickle the blue hydrangeas. Aunt Ray pops out of the shower, terry cloth sarong, threatening to show all of her old maid pinkness as she lifts her arms, pinning her swimsuit to the sagging line. Uncle Joe's always at work in the summer office. Aunt Lou has dibs for the shower, then my dad, her baby brother favorite, Mom scurrying to be helpful. Me, I'm always last, blazing in the late August sun, snug in these perfect days that will last forever. Sometimes it would be nice to be 10 again. I don't want to go through any of the rest of it, but 10 would be kind of nice. When I started to clean up the house, as Susana mentioned, it was cluttered. My cousin, who was their child, had been hoarding, and she died suddenly. And among other things, there was just reams of letters, telegrams, all kinds of things that they had never thrown anything out for, I think, 50 years. So my uncle was a newspaper man, and this is a slightly edited piece of one of the many letters that he wrote. To my daughter, to his daughter from a guy named Joe, annotated by me. Like most stories, it will start once upon a time. This guy named Joe got himself a chance to work on the New York Journal American. Spot opens in New England territory. I open my big mouth and I'm on my way to Yankee Land, all expenses paid plus salary. This was the Cats, doing swell, having the time of my life, not a care in the world. Then it happened. A female at the paper crossed my path. Funny thing about the friends this Lou had, including the bosses. They kept on telling and advising her, nix on this guy Joe. And what I discovered, it may have had a little something to do with the fact that he was 30 and married and she was 17. So the next poem is To Have and Have Not. Here's looking at you, kid. Men said things like that. You know how to whistle, don't you? Just put your lips together and blow. We know a woman said that, at least in the movies. The camera was there, but she didn't write the script. They were scripted for her. She's just a kid. He's been around. See the rakish angle of his fedora, how his cigarette dangles. She keeps talking and thinks he's saying something. Most of my poems in this book are free verse, but this next one is a villanelle, so you'll hear the repeating forms. Echo of the Undertow. Another letter from a guy named Joe. Lies, jailbait, sorry, a weave. Secrets, silence, the undertow. Battering and plaintive echo. Love us, don't leave, don't leave. Another letter from a guy named Joe. Naming, rhyming, endearments flow, sculpting lives. What can you believe? Secrets, silence, the undertow, yielding more than you want to know. Follow the rack line and retrieve another letter from a guy named Joe. Wed who, when, blanks in his bio, this uncle you adored. Now you grieve, secrets, silence, the undertow, traceries of sea grist below, ebbing time, no more make-believe. Another letter from a guy named Joe. Secrets, silence, the undertow. First death. The phone rang. I called to my parents. Don't answer, Uncle Joe is dead. But they did, and he was. I was 16, young to lose someone I loved so much, though only a year younger than my aunt when he pursued her. How could he be in a casket? When I couldn't bear being at the wake, I went back to the house for comfort. Miss Ellen, my aunt's housekeeper, had come out of retirement to help. She'd always talked to me like I was a grown-up. She told me not to grieve. She'd been talking to my uncle and he was just fine. I said, and fled to my shoreline haven to cry in my dress-up clothes amidst the glee of happy surf skippers, so muddled. I had never known such sadness. I knew the nuns were wrong. He and I would not be meeting again in heaven. This next poem is called My Aunt's Blue Velvet Robe. And one of the many things I found cleaning out the house. And the first two lines of it are in her voice. And so I'm going to do that thing whenever somebody else's voice comes up, because I know you can't hear the italics in my voice. My aunt's blue velvet robe. Oh, my soul and body, it's noon. I'm still in my robe. We were building a family tree. She who I wanted to be when I grew up, who knew how to say and show love. Everything about her and her home seemed perfect. 30 years later, I'm wearing the robe, found when cleaning out her house, my harbor then and now. Found along with secrets of devotion, deceit, and sorrow. The robe is wearing out, nap thinning to translucence. I know I will have to let it go. Some of you have actually seen that robe when you've been in the house with me, but it's gone now. The next one is about my cousin, what I kind of imagined how her life had shrunk. She ended up living in this house by herself for many years after my aunt died. Much too much house for one person. And anyway, behind the looking glass, her she who was blossoms a ghostly presence, in the antique armoire's clouded mirror. Mars of time dissolved, bringing back the seeking face of a girl who wanted and feared her wanting an equal measure. She crosses the bedroom, climbing alone under the duvet, shivering on cold cotton in the empty seaside air. Fragile glimmer of lost beauty, youth surfacing only to haunt, gone, more to be mourned, desire unbidden, unspoken, too late, tonight wanting only the veil of sleep, the shadow self. This is going to have, this next poem's called Listing, and it's going to have another section after description. That's my cousin's voice to me over several years. Listing. Herring goes home, laughing gulls leave. She taught me that. Beach walk talk of skate case, piper, plover, wind blow, razor, soft or piss clam, her boundless almanac of fact. Stashes of mini spiral notebooks recording out-of-state license plates, cards sent, received, books read, miles walked, weather, medications, surgeries, then her jumbled last year's accounts. When are you coming? Your room's ready. I got new sheets and towels. It took me 2 days to wax the kitchen floor. Why are you 10 minutes early? You don't want to stay at the house, do you? I stayed away most of a year. She hid, dying. I'm back, sorting and sorting. I read her lists. The winter beach is strewn with unnamed bone and castings. The never listed will inherit our home. And the never listed was because my uncle had family that nobody knew about. But you have to go to the book to get the whole story. Sorry. So I'm just going to read this last poem. It took me a long time because my previous book was called Tenement Threnody. So I grew up in a 3-room apartment in New York City in Upper Manhattan in a really Irish neighborhood. And then I'd come down to this place every summer, which was like a whole other world. But as a kid, you don't know that. It was just great. I loved it. But it took me a long time before I could say it was my house, to label it that way. So this poem is the last poem in the book. It's called Uncle George's Fish. Uncle George was actually my great uncle. He was an architect and what he would called a weekend painter. So Uncle George's Fish. An oceanscape painted by one well-to-do relative given to another, coveted by my mother, she of the poor side, holy water side. Flat rocks, stiff waves and bubbles ought to tell her, look, this is a fish out of water. Gills panting off the canvas, one-dimensional rocks and wilted seaweed. She saw art in a substantial frame. Abject hints for one of her own unheeded. When grown and finally debt-free, I bought her a quick stroke seascape at a Cape Cod shop. Check marks of gull, slinky spirals of wave, hung over the sofa with pride, where it stayed after she died, till it hung by Dad's nursing home bed. At his death, we left it there, while Uncle George's Fish still hovers on the silk-papered parlor wall of the seaside house that's come to be mine. I can dispose of this fish as I will. My daughter says the fish belongs on our wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. So I told you all it was going to be about more than the house. I'm in awe of how you're able to make use of all that material instead of being so overwhelmed by the material that you just pile it up and throw it out. So yes.
Yeah,
well,
it only took me 15 years to write the book. There's really nothing much to it.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Meredith. Of course, you had me at the first moment telling me that the house was built in 1912, the same year that Titanic set sail. I'm a Titaniac, so anybody says 1912, I'm right there. And also, of course, just the way that a house is a container of so much more than what resides in its walls. Truly giving credence to, it's not a cliche, if those walls could speak. And here they've spoken through your collection.
you.
Beautiful. Really,
Thanks, Sandy.
really provocative. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, I have the amazing and to me, overwhelming in the best possible way, honor to introduce Lana Hechtman Ayers to our audience today. And Lana is joining us today celebrating the release earlier this May of her 10th collection of poems, When All Else Fails, published with the Poetry Box. We're fortunate today, we have a number of editors with us, and Lana is the managing editor of not one, not two, but 3 presses: Concrete Wolf Poetry, World Enough Writers, and a press very, very dear to me as a person who resides in the Pacific Northwest, Moon Path Press, which publishes the poets from the Pacific Northwest. I share really this information with you because I believe every time I hear a reading from a Moon Path Press poet, I think of Lana. I think of Lana. I can't help but think of her. I think of the care that she brings to this endeavor to bring the voices of the Moon Path Press poets that I hear to audiences everywhere. And when you read her own work, her own poetry, when you hear it, you understand that poetry permeates her every day, her every day. She finds poetry everywhere and chooses to share it. When All Else Fails is a collection that shimmers in all the ways that one asks of poetry, especially when the narratives housed in the poems are often asking the tall order of rising from the traumas of childhood. You can hold these poems up to any light and see how they resonate, not with self-aggrandizement, not with pity, not sorrow or regret, but with that most powerful combination of uplift and craft. There's joy residing in these homes of language. There is no need to flee their dangers. There are no failures here. Please join me in welcoming Lana Hechtman Ayers.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It is my goal in life to live up to your introduction. I mean, I'm bowled over by that. And I'm so honored to read with these esteemed poets today. It really is an honor and a privilege. And I'm going to give a special shout out to LJ because we are both New England College MFA alums. So it was a delight to see her name on the bill and read with a fellow NEC alum. So great to be here. I'm feeling like a little bit of a fraud because invited as a West poet, I grew up in New York and on the East Coast. So you're going to hear some of the East Coast in my work today. The first poem is called Long Ago. I wanted only to be clean as laundry, drying on the line in the open sunshine. but the dark house of my mother's anger taught me to hoard words until I grew silent. The constant chill of despair slicked my skin with salt, so that I was nearly an ocean of longing. My unkempt desires kept me alert. I grew scrupulous as an owl, seeking eyes that would meet my own. Every breeze was fire and brimstone. I grew ashen. I grew tiresome as moss, trivial as a moon no one gazes upon, a moon that never shines, not even with borrowed light. And this next one is called When You Say You're from New York City. When you say you're from New York City, the entire borough of Queens doesn't count, especially our sinkhole spot in the borough. No yellow cab traffic honks or women striding through streets in high-heeled pumps, only roaring from Idlewild airfields practically at our back door. Rows of identical box houses built over swamps, low-slung shops with parking lots the size of half a Manhattan block, and the oxymoronic elevated subway hurtling by, screeching brakes. Mother was the stay-at-home kind who'd rather be anywhere else, especially singing on the radio or starring in some pot boiler like the black and white movie star autographed photos framed on the walls. Like relations, we'd be the black sheep for. 5 a.m. every weekday, Daddy disappeared wearing army green coveralls, his nickname Mac, machine stitched into the bib center pocket. He returned home 12 hours later, knuckles calloused, smile askew, his eyes puddles reflecting overcast sky. I had a big brother with hands like those giant junkyard claws. Took, crushed, didn't matter whose or what. My tennis shoes, too tight, big toe poking out like an earthworm rain smothered out of his dirt home. Daddy's paycheck had as much stretch as a number 2 pencil. So we accepted food from a church pantry and the shame of walking 10 blocks home with charity sacks filled with unnatural orange cheese the size of a car battery, cans of greens, beans slimy as the slugs that infested the shrubbery outside our brick front asbestos-sided ranch house, always a mortgage payment behind. Saturdays, Daddy mowed the 3 grass blades jutting out from the rowdy dandelions that stood in for lawn, while Mother escaped to some beauty shop for half the day, came back with a teased high dome of hair no robin would ever make her home. Once in a while, on a generous Sunday, there was Mickey D's for supper, 1 large order of fries split between the 4 of us. Rainy weekend nights drove us each to our own shadowy, spider-webbed corners of the house. Mine sitting atop moldering, mismatched shoes in the damp hall closet, the scent of mothballs, a kind of anesthetic. But if the weather held, we torched marshmallows, no matter the season, in a rusted-out charcoal grill out behind the house in its gravel pit of a backyard, swatting flies or mosquitoes or whatever was biting us, as something always was. Such was our glamorous New York City life. And this next one is called An Incomplete List of Places I Have Cried. And I could, if I wanted to complete this poem, it would take me the rest of my life. So here's the incomplete list. In my childhood bedroom, into my pillow that always tasted of salt and Ritz crackers, smelled of sweat and the VO5 hair pomade I slathered on unsuccessfully to lasso my afro. My mother liked to say, "I'll really give you something to cry about." She always made good on that promise. At school, in the girls' bathroom stalls, my favorite one by the high window, so I could look out through the iron grate into the grid of sky, imagining myself a caged bird yearning for flight, instead of my classmates' exotic zoo animal, their monkey face, fat ape, gorilla girl. The first time I saw the sea, the rough gray-green waters of the Atlantic at Coney Island with my grandparents. The smell of hot dogs and knishes under red heat lamps all along the boardwalk dried my tears, and my stomach growled with pleasure. Alone, on a bench in a parking lot at a truck stop, somewhere in the Pennsylvania Dutch country, crying and dry heaving simultaneously, my family having gotten off the tour bus somewhere else to see how the Amish live, leaving 6-year-old me dizzy and feverish to be looked after by the driver who abandoned me. When Harris LeBaron asked Sharon Bloom to go to McDonald's with him instead of me. Lying in an aluminum lawn chair woven with green nylon straps in my backyard, watching the meteor shower, wishing I could incinerate that beautifully. Solving calculus equations at the dining room table when Howard Cosell interrupted his commentary on the Monday night football my dad watched to tell the world John Lennon had just been shot. In 20th century British and American drama class, discussing Joe Orton's Entertaining Mr. Sloan, a prickly sensation came over my entire body, and I sensed my grandmother had just ascended to heaven. At the window of my first apartment, the one where the ceiling height molding was a cockroach superhighway, just after my dad dropped me off from a visit home, and I saw him 3 stories down on the street swipe his cheeks below his eyes as he got into his car to drive away. In the subway car, on the way to my first adult job in the city, car packed so tight, my face pressed into the back of a man who smelled exactly like my dead grandpa, of Aqua Velva aftershave and Nestle's Quick chocolate milk. This next poem is in memory of an early poetry mentor of mine, the poet Patricia Fargnoli, who passed away. And I still miss her. It's called Pemaquid Cove Writing Retreat. The house we'd rented had been a captain's home at one time, later a village post office. Bright and spare, lemon-painted walls and sturdy navy blue armchairs, but the stairs were narrow, steep. My friend Pat's bad knees meant I'd be the one to sleep up there with moaning century-old ghosts. June in Maine can still be cold and below freezing, not impossible. Snow had fizzled to spotty lace on the browned grass, and a lavender bowl of languid crocuses welcomed us to our writing space for the week. But the true draw, effervescent, thunderous, was the Atlantic Ocean right outside the back door, promising excellent early sunrise skies and the presence of an ever-ready muse. Since no poet can create on an empty stomach, we ditched our luggage laden with too many books inside the entrance and trundled our hungry selves a few blocks over to the local lobster shack, a clabbered hut leaking tempting, briny steam. Outside, on a splintery picnic bench, We cracked prehistoric boiled red creatures with our bare hands, butter dripping from our fingers and our faces. Even if I didn't compose a single rousing phrase, my belly full of lobster each of our 6 days would be visceral villanelle enough. And I'm going to finish with a poem that was written after Wendell Berry's manifesto, and it's called Creed. I have sworn prayers in the chapel of poetry, the only God whose answers abound in every language, whose questions, abundant as rain, make fertile the earth. Each morning, my waking prayer is different. Today, Wendell Berry tracks the page with fox paws. And before I go to sleep tonight, my own tired hands will muddy the notebook with nearly illegible hieroglyphics about serrated crow's wings shredding dusk. Faith is a metaphor for ocean, but also a simile for sorrow. This afternoon, seated in the last pew of the forest, cedar boughs wave their needled branches against uncompromising sky, like beseeching arms of yet another mother whose child was felled by violence. I wonder if I have chosen my religion wisely. Fidelity to words makes me vulnerable to hope. The air howls and pounds, and I can't tell if it's the wind or the sound of my heart throbbing in my head. The news is grave. Earth will survive us, heal until the scars humanity gouged are greened over. For now, all I want to do is pray day and night. Pablo Neruda, Warsan Shire, Langston Hughes, Patricia Fargnoli, Richard Blanco, Alison Luterman, Octavio Paz, Ellen Bass. I want to trust in the art of language, how remarkably words mirror our agonizing beauty that struggles yet rises to the surface of love, like newborn naked mole rats, blind, chirping, nuzzling together, seeking suckle. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's just so ironic because I have an Ellen Bass poem sitting right next to me. The thing is, which of course I know that you know the poem. I'm just so moved by the reading, and sometimes I'm speechless, and that's the best thing, is for me to be speechless. Thank you. Just beautiful. Lynn, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Lana. That was really, you know, the two, Meredith and Lana, like your poems, I think, with the family history, and it was, you know, they go really well together, are very interesting together. Different, but still. So, okay, it is my pleasure to introduce LJ Sysko. A friend invited me to a reading a few months ago, and another poet on the program was LJ Sysko, and I wasn't familiar with her work, but I liked her work so much as I was listening to her in the Zoom reading that I ordered her book on my laptop as I was listening. Allusions present in the poems include references to Rene Magritte's The Son of Man, which LJ subverts in the title poem of her book, The Daughter of Man, which was a finalist for the 2023 Miller-Williams Poetry Prize and released from the University of Arkansas Press earlier this year. Other references allude to cultural icons of childhood, and this is one of the things that I like about the book. The after-school specials that aired on TV up to the mid-90s, the presidential fitness test, games like Spin the Bottle, and Michael Jackson's Moonwalk. Unbothered by delineations of decades and eras, the poems allude to Robert Frost and Jefferson Airplane, T.S. Eliot and TikTok. It's just really beautifully composed that way. Mostly, it isn't the stark freshness of the poem's allusions, but their tone that pulls the book together with meaning, humor, and tenderness. Ross Gay, in one of the blurbs for the book, writes of the collection's, quote, chiseled, rambunctious music. And Anne-Marie Macari writes of Sysko's, quote, electric nerve, as the poems reveal with comic flair worlds that often infantilize and trap women. So I enjoyed that a lot. The speaker in The Daughter of Man explores the roles of maiden, warrior, queen, maven, and crone across about, like I said, like 2,000 years of cultural references. Patricia Smith speaks directly to L.J. Sysko in her introduction of The Daughter of Man, saying, quote, you are a wildness and a weirdness, and I would like to play a role in unleashing you upon the world. I would add that if a poet can make me laugh and feel vindicated all at once, I am their fan for life. So please give a warm welcome to L.J. Sysko.
Wow, Lynn, oh my gosh, what a beautiful introduction. I'm bowled over by that, and I'm really honored to have been invited to read here this evening. And thank you to Carolyne, Susana, and Sandy too for putting together such a cool virtual series. I'm honored to be part of it. And Dvzinia, Meredith, and Lana, thank you for reading with me. I'm inspired by your work. And Lana's right, we do know each other from Henniker, New Hampshire back in the day. Gosh. I loved every second of that MFA. And I think, Lana, I'm right in remembering that you were mentored by Anne-Marie Macari too, a really important person in our poetic development, I'm sure, if I can speak for you too. So I'm going to read poems from my book, The Daughter of Man, and I'll talk a little bit more about the book itself and the paradigm therein later. But for now, I'll just get started, beginning really as one must with the overlap between death and humor. The first poem is called, She Wants to Be Buried in a Cocoon. She wants to be buried in a cocoon, her decomposing corpse becoming food for a planted tree. This presumes a lot on behalf of the tree. But she's in excellent condition, so as a meal, she'd be more organic than most, what with yoga, Pilates, undyed hair, and the diet requiring she pour melted butter churned from Irish grass-fed cow's milk into her morning coffee. Whether it's elm or linden, hickory or tulip, these are her choices, like men on Tinder. Tulips are the tallest Eastern hardwood, and hickory's the broad-shouldered one often seen standing in a field all alone. Whichever she chooses, her tree will embrace her bundle, fetal position and upside down, mixing her into a batter, a paste, muesli thinned with rainwater. When he lifts the pablum to his lips, he'll sip and she'll rise, climbing higher, stripping herself bare, leaving clothes on the stairs, laughing so only he can hear. Rings mark the years. What's stupid is driving a car with an epitaph decal stuck to the back window. What can you see except grief spelled backwards in rear view? At traffic lights, I decipher your exhaust plume rune, middle initial, nickname, lifespan, and self-recriminate for trying to deduce how death came, because this tombstone wasn't my idea, it was yours. And while you tune your radio, I am standing graveside instead of you, facing this thing down with your beloved, calculating whether it's better to wave our arms, make ourselves look big, run, scream, serpentine, climb a tree, or close our eyes having done the math and sing. So this whole book is not about death, though it is one of its preoccupations. but maybe less mortality itself than the iterative deaths, the closing downs, the narrowings, the silencings that inform the feminine developmental experience from girlhood to old ladiness. So the next poem is also called What's Stupid. There's two of those in the book. What's stupid is, even if aliens do mean us harm and descend the way they did in comic books, all jumbo almond eyes, peach pit heads, and pistachio ice cream skin, knocking the totem off Bob's big boy roof, even if they utter language that's frozen and vegetable. Even if with weapons drawn or peace in our puny hearts, we're vaporized, liquefied, or harvested as fuel, I'll still feel the jubilant force of epiphany. The way a pearl peering out of a knife-pried oyster might behold a kitchen. The way a woman dwelling within a paneled parlor might put the phone receiver down, return to preparing dinner, folding laundry, Gunsmoke, or Green Acres, having just heard the unutterable word. The unutterable word is left open-ended there in the poem's closing. It's meant to be a kind of Mad Lib, Rorschach, fill in the blank for you. Is it cancer, which was a kind of mid-20th century no-no word? People referred to it as the C word. Or divorce, or is it some other facet of free will or personal agency that some contemporary empowered majority would prefer we not discuss? And there's myriad of those, right? So this next poem is dedicated to those particular assholes with whom we are unfortunately living at present. It is called To the Hypothetical Hostile Man in the Audience. Thank you for standing up and grappling with the open mic like it's your dick turned rapacious cobra. I guess we'll all watch you charm it back into its deplorable little basket. Thank you for dumping misogyny's contents like a pirate's treasure chest carried in for Queen's review. At my feet, at my throat, where you aspire to see decadent ostentation like your worldview worn. Such booty, such jewels, patently compensatory, heavier than is practical in summer, and I can't wear them all because they clash with the semiotics of my outfit, garishly contrast with my values, and I'd honestly stagger under the weight, too bow-legged to stand or move without aid. But I think that's likely what you desire, to hobble me. You swashbuckler bereft of boat, of map, of guiding star, other than an audience captive, borrowed like an archipelago of sugar. Quick, you think, before they dissolve out of hearing forever. I see you. I got you. I know from whence your fountain of youthful resentment flows, but I am not the unwitting galleon or biddable pretender you imagine, though my cannons may impress, and I was taught to speak fluently the language of my oppressor. Please gather your wits, your snake, your chest, don a pair of binoculars, and see we're out here sailing on the same ocean where I'm plainly not to blame for the doldrums you're in. You, like me, do not lack for wind. So the book, I'm going to hold up the cover, is, as Lynn said, a feminist retort to Renee Magritte's painting, The Son of Man, which is the one everybody recognizes if I say it's the guy in the suit with the bowler hat and the green apple obscuring his face. So what I'm seeking to do here with The Daughter of Man is to basically accept Magritte's premise that sociopolitical forces render all of us homogenous. He was speaking particularly about the masculine. And I'm suggesting that, well, yes, if that's true, then what happens to the feminine if you layer on the oppressive and sclerotic force of patriarchy? And so I replaced the green apple with bubblegum, which felt like really rather than obscuring the feminine face, because the face is a source of empowerment in our society, that really the gum is like a binky silencing this particular character. So the book is, as Lynn also said, sectioned according to the heroine's journey. But the trigger for the first third of the manuscript was really an erasure of female Western visual artists. And one of those is named Paula Modersohn Becker, whose nude was really a self-portrait of her pregnant self, was probably the first modernist nude, actually beating Matisse and Picasso to it, but she's not really given credit for that. And this poem is called Paula. Cutlery plinks, silver tinks, in brothels busy behind the lines. Bodies lie crowned by dragonflies. Apricot trees blown to matchwood preside acres wide like nursery wallpaper flocked. She loses count of craters. Maze Valley pitted, pounded, dogs and cats come skulking back like scents that vanished returning en masse. Here's lull enough within for taking stock. Roots, men, blood and claws dig in.
Back there, baby.
Picking their way, horse and rider canter across piebald ground, that fertile spell cast like a die between wars thrown by mothers. And writing these poems, I was interested in painting techniques. So how they might correlate, or the degree to which they could be deployed in poems, exerting attentional control over the composition and reader experience. So one of the experiments I ran was in how to lead readers in, establish expectation, and then subvert it. So this next poem and my last is called Pool. Pool. As I sit on a lounger in yellow-pink September, I look up to see a monarch sailing about against a sky I can only honestly describe as azure. Here's a cerulean pool cut like a quilt panel into the lawn, which is genuinely emerald. And for an added touch, some wag has left a gigantic sliced lemon floating and scudding against the pool's walls with a gentle breeze. The monarch seems to follow the lemon as though they're tethered. I lie back and think about my gorgeous luck to be here, alive, well-fed, safe, able, cognizant, and so on, until I get greedy, then wonder how much better this moment would be if you were here, if we were together. And of course, this brings me to, as the butterfly dips behind a tree in shadow, and so it too must know how difficult it was to please my mother. Thank you so much.
That was just fabulous, LJ Sysko. That was just fabulous.
Thanks, Lynn.
So much. You're such a great reader too.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to hear you. Wow. So this has been quite a reading tonight. And now we have an open mic. And the tradition in our open mic is each person reads one fabulous poem. And we have 4 open mic readers. So listen carefully because it goes fast. Our first open mic poet is Bruce Whitaker. Go, Bruce.
Hi, everyone. Wonderful, wonderful evening yet again. Thank you so much to our coordinators and these poets. I was in Nebraska in the month of April, and I had a chance to take a workshop with the Nebraska state poet, Matt Mason. And this poem was prompted, he said, look for a poem that has a range of emotions, maybe silly and serious at the same time. So this is Video Game Espionage. And as an epigraph, a damaging batch of documents leaked from the Pentagon appears to have been initially shared on the video game chat platform Discord in an effort to win an argument about the war in Ukraine, according to open source intelligence analysts. That's from CNN. They train our boys to shoot straight and true. They launch our favorite movies and shows. I've never played one in my life, yet for anyone of working age, gaming is their default activity. And with AI, it's about to get interesting. We may have been living in one all along. They make you feel like a god, or at least that you're on his squad. Kids immersed in them have saved their parents' sex lives, made endurable that trip to grandma's. Video games break through into the real world. And like all good things, there's a twist. Korean boys gaming nonstop have died. Shooting games can lead to shooting crimes. And now this, a random crew at the ultimate console. Gamers pick off state councils, share the docs, flip the PowerPoints, breach the leaky ship of state. Whose hand has grabbed the joystick now? Nations fall in ignorance, wrath, and pride. Ours may be lost on a Grand Theft Auto ride. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bruce. I love that you ended with a Grand Theft Auto ride. That's perfect. So our next poet is, open mic reader is Beth Morris. Hi, Beth.
Okay, that's typical for me. Hi, everyone. I'm going to be reading a poem that was published already. It's in my new book called A Yellowed Notebook, and a little bit drawing from Lana's theme. The only thing I could recover from my father after he died was a yellowed notebook, which he wrote in the last year of his long fight with chronic heart disease before he died. And it's a collaborative hybrid which incorporates his notes with my poetry, and it's a mix of different poetry types too. And I want to give a shout out to Dvzinia, because this poem is also based upon relatives with a Russian, Ukrainian, Bessarabian, which is now Moldova, which is right next to the Ukraine background. And so I'm going to read a poem called After Siberia. The first part of it is from my father's notebook, which was written in 1977. From Dave's notebook, here's the epigraph. Kaplan / Bromberg, Joseph, furrier in Russia, born in Kishinev, Bessarabia. Family name changed to evade conscription in Russian army. Joe, my pop. Important Menshevik revolutionary, exiled to Siberia, sent 2,000 miles on horseback, released in 1905 amnesty, came to Chicago in 1907 to meet mother. I was born in a tenement over Comiskey Park, baseball. If anyone in our family ever visits the USSR, records of his name exist. The USSR keeps very good records of their pioneer revolutionaries. After Siberia. Grandpa carried his samovar into the dining room, set it on a stand in front of his chair at the head of the table. A heavy silver urn, 2 feet high, engraved with vines and flowers, a pattern common in Bessarabia. No coffee or tea in the cylinder, no bowl or cup to catch the flow of boiling water. A simple plate, thin slices of lemon in the center. I sat in silence watching him. Just before he released the valve, he placed a lump of sugar on his tongue and lifted the saucer of seething nectar to his mouth. Thanks, everyone.
More family history kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a strong theme tonight. Our next open mic reader is Lisa Badner, and I'll just say that Lisa and our other two open mic readers are previous featured poets in our series. So thank you, Lisa. Take it away, open mic number 3.
I couldn't decide what to read. This was such a fabulous reading, all of
Yeah.
these readers. Oh my God, I'm floored. So I'm just going to read something out of my book that I didn't read a few months ago. My father just died, so I thought I'll read one about him. It's called Macaroons, the Last Days. The shop steward shows me her frozen toes. Your father turned the heat off again. Cold is a state of mind, my father says, in shorts and a muscle tank. More complaints come in, a chemical taste, hard as a rock, spoiled, soapy. Saponification, when coconut turns to soap, a mystery, Dad says. My husband thinks I tried to poison him with your product, a customer writes. Please tell him it's the coconut. Maybe you should, my father replies, poison him. Dad's knee is busted. Doctors are fucking assholes, he says. The other leg gives out. He falls down the stairs. The bookkeeper's skin is a greenish tint. Lungs filled with fluid, just got another stent. Phone message from exterminator. Let your rats run wild, Macaroon King. I don't work for free. My father bolts the door so the rabbis can't get in. We watch them buzz on the new security TV purchased after Jesus, the mechanic, stole the computers. Thanks.
Wow. Wow.
Macaron King. Never gonna forget that. I remember that's in your book, right? That poem?
That one's in my book. Yeah.
Thought it sounded familiar. Yeah, I love
Sorry
that.
for your loss, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks.
So our last open mic poet is Lorraine Corelli. So welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations on a wonderful featured reading. Notes from a loud, all over the place woman. I am one of the loud talking women whose hearts are all over the place, rooted in a thirst for life, women who love deeply and whose grief, trauma, passion, and sadness are ever flowing like the Nile River. Authentic women. Ours is the pain, sadness, and fleeting moments of joy, creating our laughter. If you understood, you would join in our rejoicing. We do not silence our throats and sit with folded hands. This language is foreign and does not fit us. We exist between finely carved words like leave us the fuck alone and get the fuck out of our way. Still you spend your dead hours trying to break and harness our spirits and bodies, resenting our beauty, power, and life force. There are always those professing to know us. We assure you they do not. Folk are always ready to hush our voices and silence our grief, even at the death of loved ones, as though our grief would end with the silencing of our tears. We find no comfort nor care in your demands, only witness your fears and failed joy. We will not die from our individual and collective grief, even though we have felt at times we would. Our spirit has always sought and continues to seek freedom, giving less than a damn what others think, nor do we live to comfort their fear. Death will meet us one day when we will no longer reside in our physical bodies, reuniting us with true freedom, resting in the arms of our Creator. Until then, we loud women will continue to live with our sacred moments of unbridled joy, loud and all over the place. Thank you.
Love it. Loud and all over the place.
Woo.
Whoa.
Yeah. So one last person, apparently they were reaching out to one of the other hosts, and so I didn't have his name. Whoops, where'd it go? Here it is. Okay, are you here, Raphael? It's one poem, no longer than a page in length. So where are you? I don't see you, sir. Ma'am.
Short poem.
I
No.
stand corrected. Sorry about that.
Is this the person you want, Alexis Raphael Carolyne?
I thought it was Raphael.
It was Raphael Kosick, but he may have left.
Oh, Kosick, sorry, that's somebody else.
Well,
I apologize.
It was a he, but
Well, there-
while I was communicating with Lynn about this, because he had reached out to me, but while I was communicating with Lynn about this, he seems to have departed.
No,
So-
Raphael
No, they're
Kosick is
here.
in the
They're
gallery
here.
waving.
Oh, he is? Oh,
Raphael's
Raphael, sorry.
It's a woman.
It's okay. Sorry about that,
All
Raphael.
right, sorry. I still haven't seen the image. Anyway,
No worries. Yeah. So
I don't see the name in the.
take it away, Raphael Kosick.
You're
Oh,
muted.
Are you muted? Because it doesn't, I don't see the mute sign. We can't hear you.
I can't even see the name.
I see the name. Raphael, we can't.
I don't see the. I didn't see the name a minute ago, which is why I.
Okay, I see the name, but we cannot, I'm sorry, Raphael, we can't hear you.
So, sorry, we're going to have to just close now. So I just want to thank all the readers tonight.
Thought the person had departed. Raphael is unmuted.
Okay. Thank you so much to our featured readers, Lana, Hechtman, Ayers, Dvzinia, Orlowsky, LJ, Sysko, and Meredith, Trede. Thank you so much. And thank you to our open mic readers. I'm sorry that your mic wasn't working, Raphael, but let's do it next time, okay? Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. It was a wonderful reading, and we hope to see you in a couple months when we
Yeah, July 9th, I believe, right?
I don't know. if
Next
Sandy
reading
had
is Sunday, July 9th.
Yeah.
Indeed, it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sandy, I'm sorry. Did you want to do some closing remarks? I think I just.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. You did a fine job of closing.
Accidental closure.
Accidental closure. I love it. We should
Yeah.
all write a poem called
Accidental closure, yes.
Accidental closure. That's beautiful.
It's far too often, you know.
We will be returning on July 9th for another quartet of amazing poetry. What I truly love about this reading series that, you know, the initial impulse was to bring the coasts, but of course we have poets that are not just from the coasts. It's amazing what we can like hear from those different perspectives of what happens when you lean your ear to the Atlantic, what happens when you lean your ear into the Pacific, and everything in between. So I encourage you all in the next couple months, you know, keep writing poems, bring them to our next reading, where I know one of the features already, and if you've never heard her read, Jennifer Franklin is going to be with us.
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer-
My teacher.
Yes,
my
Jennifer
mentor.
Franklin, astounding poet.
Yes.
And I don't want to jump and tell
We have
you.
the other three readers yet.
Yeah, I'm hoping my contribution is going to be David Groff, whom I also adore from Trio House.
Wow.
So these folks, as you know, my co-hosts do the best job
best.
of bringing you the best poets anywhere, every time. So join us back on July 9th. And also, I want to give a little heads up to
Mhm.
mark your calendars for the reading in September,
Yeah, yes.
which is going to be a little bit of a departure from our usual format to bring you a reading from the anthology called From the Belly, from Wordsworth's books. It is an anthology of poems inspired by Gertrude Stein's book.
Wow.
So I hope you can join us
Wow.
and mark your calendar for September. Until then, everybody, again, thanks to other co-hosts, Lynn McGee, Susana Case, and Carolyne Wright, and to our readers, and to also you and our audience, our listeners. I was on another program earlier today mentioning that I was going to be doing a poetry doubleheader, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
And the number of you in that were also in that audience. So kudos to everybody for making time for poetry today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bezos.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sandy, and thank you for all my co-hosts and all the readers, and hope to be in touch again soon. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Good night now. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Bruce, bring in the Titanic.
Oh, yeah. Great that it was the same year, which was also the year my mother was born. So, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
My parents were slightly older parents, but then, I'm yeah.
Well, we're all getting there.
Yeah.
We're all getting there. We're all getting there.
Well, I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you down in Olympia, Sandy. We've only been in the same room physically once, I think, IRL in real time.
You know what? Twice.
Uh-huh.
Twice. Another time. So we were in Ballard, right? We
Right.
remember we were in Ballard.
Yeah.
But another time when we were in the same proximity to each other was Poets in the Park in Redmond.
Which one? Which one?
It was 2019. I know, because I was reading in the New Voices series.
Oh, okay.
Both for Women had just come out. So yeah, so I saw you read there.
Oh, okay. I think that was, I was
I don't think I talked with you.
No, I was, because it was both in 2019, kind of bookending my month in Brazil that time, because Poets in the Park was before, it was in July, and then I left for Bahia in mid-August, August 12th, something like that, and then I came back in September, and the day after I returned was the reading at It's About Time at the Ballard Library. So, yeah.
Well, I
All
have
this
no
West Coast stuff.
either of you in
I know.
what I refer to as meat space.
It's amazing though, all this virtual meeting. We really, I mean, the one thing that I can't tell from anybody's, little rectangular image is how tall we are,
I am not very.
No, I mean, I am vertically challenged. And so, yeah. So that's one thing is hard to tell. But anyway, so good to see you all. I'm going to close down here, and then I'm going to go back up and go see my husband, who's only 3 blocks away, but it's a completely different world, of the skilled nursing facility. But it's a very interesting little subculture of skilled nursing facilities.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I hope he's, gets out soon.
Yeah. I hope he can stay there he's approved through our Medicare Disadvantage plan through May 30th, but I hope we can, I've already written to our PCP to ask for another 30 days, because the longer he can stay in a place like that, the better in terms of getting care that I really can't provide. I can't, the thing is, I can't really, I don't have, I'm not strong enough, tall enough, or trained enough to even do things like transfer, which is getting the person to stand up from the bed and then pivot and sit in the wheelchair or sit in a chair or on the commode or whatever, and then do the whole process in reverse. And he can walk with a walker, but he has to be accompanied by somebody. And he has to get stronger and more mobile and more independent before I would be able to, before he could just come home and just be the two of us here.
Is he getting stronger?
Oh yeah, he's getting stronger. He's definitely getting stronger. And he's always had a lot of upper body strength, and he had lots of lower body strength too until all of this happened. But in 3 days, it'll be 5 months since he fell and broke his hip, so it's been quite a roller coaster of 3 surgeries, and hopefully he will be able to just continue healing and ultimately come home and be able to be fairly independent. It's a question of how independent. We're not certain yet. But we'll see.
I'm going to see you. I'm sure. I'm fairly sure, because I'm planning to come to the Lost Horse Press reading on the 9th.
On June 9th. Oh, okay, wonderful. Then I'll see you there. Yes, yes.
So I was like, I can't, I don't care, I'll leave Evergreen early that day, now that I'm retiring.
Right. You're too young to retire.
Now, I'm like, okay, they can't fire me now.
Right.
So I'm gonna, so I'm definitely gonna plan to make it up for that reading, and because I'll get to see you. I'll get to meet Christine for the first time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Plus, there'll be so many other. That's going to be what a reading that's going to be. So I have to choose my time carefully, as we all do.
Yeah. Well, I'll have another hat for you.
Caroline, I meant to tell you that I've spoken to Christine a little bit, because this an old manuscript of mine is going to be published in dual language, English, Ukrainian. It takes place in Lviv,
Oh, wow.
And so we've been talking to her about, because we need someone to design it. And so I think she's going to design.
She'll design it. Yeah, she does beautiful books. She just does beautiful books. And I think her rates are reasonable for designing, book design.
Yeah.
And
Because the guy who designed the original English version doesn't feel equipped to deal with the two languages. So
yeah. No, this would be both inner and outer design, the cover and the contents, right?
Well, we have the original cover, but it'll have to be modified some.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that too.
Oh, that's great.
Did you get new glasses, Susana?
No, I've had these for a while. I don't wear my glasses all the time on Zoom, because everything's too close, and it's so you'll see me always taking them off.
Yeah, those are groovy glasses, though. I really like them.
Super groovy.
I tend to leave mine on because everything becomes a blur when I take them off.
Oh, I see. I don't read with them anymore. So if I'm too close to the screen, then I start to get dizzy and I take them off. So.
Well, it's weird because I just got I just got these glasses. Whatever. They're I asked for the most boring glasses I could get. I wasn't trying to do it anyway. But they have transition lenses.
Right.
The sun and where I sit.
Right.
At first, earlier today, the sun, I can't help it, the sunglasses.
Right, yeah, yeah. No, I think
Now
that's
I
great.
look like some weird, like, I
No,
don't.
It's usually the
Yeah.
old.
you look totally groovy, totally groovy.
Windows. I mean, mine do that too,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but not in the hot weather and usually
Yeah.
not through windows.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, like.
You've got sun in Olympia. That's amazing. It's very cloudy here.
Sunglasses,
No,
so.
no, but
now
they used to call those photo gray. I had them for a time too. They darken when you're in the sunlight, but yeah, that's great. No, you just, you're cool. You're wearing shades indoors,
Yeah, movie star.
Well, I wasn't trying to be like, I don't know what I would think this would be, like, how I would perceive it, but aloof or,
No,
whatever. It was just like, that's what happened. They went,
yeah,
when the sun came out, I was like, oh my gosh.
they look good. They look good.
Well, it's better than my wearing contacts, which were killing.
Oh God, no.
They were killing.
I
my
hated
eyes.
contacts. Mm,
So I really like
I've
glasses.
worn them in a long time.
yeah.
So our Titanic list is due at the end of the month, right? Yep. Okay, I'm working on trying to get some of the emails for people.
Ooh.
But yeah.
Well, ladies, okay, yeah. The Titanic list. We're all Titanic poets. Everything. It's
Well,
feeling.
do you have a Titanic poem?
Do I have a Titanic poem? I will look. I don't think so, but I can check and I can let you know. When do you need to know?
Probably by the end of the month, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just send me a reminder. When I think about it, I may have mentioned the Titanic. I may have alluded to it in a poem, but I will do a word search through all of my documents of poetry and see what I can find,
You want me to put her on my list?
Yeah, we didn't decide if we would going to have a completely separate list from the Maryland anthology or not.
Oh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
put her
Okay.
on.
Okay.
So
So you're doing a Titanic anthology.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, okay. That's wonderful. Well, I will look through all my work and see what I have that refers to, because I mean, so many allusions, so little time. I can't remember. But all right. Well, that's great. Well, thank you. And Sandy, I will look forward to seeing you on June 9th. That would be wonderful. I've got that reading. Yes, it's written in here, the Lost Horse reading at 7 p.m. at Elliott Bay Books.
Yep.
And yeah. And that will be in person, an actual in-person event. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get up there and I'm probably gonna get to see a lot of folks. And
Drive up early because traffic, of course, will be horrible.
Yeah.
We'll take the train.
I'm gonna try to leave yeah. What day is it?
It's a Friday.
Oh, it's a Friday. Okay, that's not
Yeah.
gonna be a problem. I just have
Yeah.
to move my therapy.
Right. So start out at noon or something. I mean, most of the rush hour traffic will be going out of Seattle, not towards Seattle, but you have Tacoma and the two military bases to contend with.
I'll
So
see if I can. I have to kind of, the students tutor until 4 and I have to monitor that. So I'll try to leave as soon as I can. I can probably leave around 4, but that gives me 3 hours. I mean,
3
I know
hours,
I'm in the rush hour, but that should give me enough time.
all right. Good luck. Okay.
Good luck.
We'll be in touch. And I'm still debating among about 3 or 4 different names for my July poet. But it'll be easy. Yeah.
I'm not going to be at the July one, so
right.
Introduce Jennifer Franklin for me.
Oh, okay, that's great.
And I'm not going to be there either. So even though I wanted to, or I can't commit. It just depends. That's the month I'm moving, and
right, yeah.
So I'm going to be overwhelmed. I know. So, but but I've got David Groff, and I
Mhm.
hate to miss him. I really want to introduce him, but I'd
Mhm.
feel that way about anybody I put forward. So we'll see if he's available.
Well, maybe if it doesn't quite work out, Lynn and I could, each of us handle 2 introductions, or we'll have to. Or maybe there was a time I was thinking to, the same way that I invited Kim Adonisio and Gary Copeland Lilly to sort of as a pair, I was thinking of inviting a pair of poets who consist of Dorianne Locks and Leila Chatti, who
Oh, yeah.
They just, they just did the mother's conversation chapbook for
Mhm.
Upper Press. I think that Lynn, I'm trying to check if she invited someone. Let me look at the docs, because then there wouldn't be.
Just says Jennifer right now.
Yeah,
And David is, who's not committed yet, but
right. And David could
okay,
read
'cause
it.
okay, because the David Groff data is in with Jennifer Franklin's for.
Right,
So that might have to be moved then, I
Yeah.
guess.
right. He could, I mean, it was September, of course, will be the From the Belly reading, but then there's always November,
Right.
so.
So I'm willing to give up my spot in November if you want to invite a pair like that.
Mhm, mhm. Or I was thinking in July, a pair would be good because then,
Well,
I would
July-
introduce
oh,
both
well,
of
I
them.
can give up my spot. You
Uh-huh.
want.
Okay.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So
We
David
can do
is not,
emails too.
is not part of July.
Not,
What?
he hasn't committed yet. No, he's
Right.
not.
Okay, all right,
So the only person committed for July so far is Jennifer.
yeah.
So, and who invited Jennifer? Was it Lynn?
I did.
You did, okay. And then Lynn would invite somebody, and I could invite both Dorianne and Layla. I don't know whether they would be available, but we could try. And if not, then, we'll figure out something. Because I have other people in mind, Shinyi Pai, who's now the civic poet of Seattle, and Lorna D. Cervantes, who she's wonderful. She's been a bit gun shy about doing
Zoom.
readings on Zoom.
Yeah, she wouldn't do cultivating voices when I asked her.
Okay. Yeah, so that she may not work out, but then there are any number of other people.
Shinyi Pai, though, was amazing when she
Yeah.
read cultivating voices.
Right, yeah. And I missed that because I've been missing a lot of things that take place at noon.
Yeah.
But anyway. Okay, ladies, thank you so
All right,
much.
well,
And we'll yeah.
Take care.
All
Bye.
right.
Yeah, you
well,
too. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Lots of love. See you. Bye-bye.